Eric Theodore Cartman, quite possibly the most demented character in fictional history.
That's like this one time when I didn't like a kid, so I ground his parents up into chili and fed it to him.
He's an impossible exaggeration of the absolute worst parts of humanity with very little redeeming qualities. Lack of empathy, a disregard for human life, master manipulator, a racist. I could go on, but I think you get the point. These are all things that are supposed to make you absolutely despise a character. He's an evil, self-centered genius, and even knowing that, he's still able to manipulate the audience into empathizing with him on a regular basis. Welcome to my video on why I believe Eric Cartman to be one of the best written characters in all of fiction. Before we can analyze Eric Cartman, we should first look at how this character came to be. The history of Cartman is an interesting one. In 1992, while at the University of Colorado, Matt Stone and Trey Parker did a short titled The Spirit of Christmas. This short would include 4 boys we know today as Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny, though their names were not revealed except for Kenny's, who was actually Cartman in 1992, but that's confusing, and we don't need to focus on that. While working on their second short in 1995, they realized that if Kenny would be the hooded character, that means they needed a name for the fat kid. At a Super Bowl party, Trey was sitting in a corner, quietly watching his friends trash talk each other. During the game, one person said, "Shut up, Cartman," which was the name of his friend, Matt Cartman. Okay, I'm realizing that just sounds like Cartman, so it's K-A-R-P-M-A-N. Trey suddenly blurted out, "Cartman, that's the perfect name for the fat kid." So Matt Cartman wasn't the actual inspiration for Eric, but he certainly was the namesake. The real closest inspiration to Eric Cartman would be the fictional character Archie Bunker from the sitcom All in the Family.
You couldn't have an Archie Bunker. And we used to talk about how, if Archie Bunker was 8 years old, I bet you could do it.
Cartman would debut in South Park on the pilot episode, which has his name in the title, Cartman Gets an Anal Probe. Early on in the series, Eric was portrayed as a spoiled brat. He was often made fun of by the other kids for being fat. He didn't have much psychological depth at the start of the show, though we do see some instances in season 1 where he showed signs of being at least a little bit disturbed. Like when he dressed up as Hitler for Halloween and told everyone what to get him for his birthday, or when he got amusement from kicking Pip in the nuts. Back in this era, his character's popularity heavily relied on catchphrases.
And you will respect my authority! No, kitty, this is my putt-putt. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
It's not like he was a bad character, he just wasn't fleshed out in a way that made him truly special. Cartman himself wasn't usually the source of the humor, but the situations he found himself in were what made him funny. Though character development is what sets great characters apart, and Eric Cartman would undergo a level of character development unlike any other. His behavior becomes progressively more sassy and offensive throughout the early seasons. But by season 4, we begin to see a significant shift in his psyche, revealing that he is far more disturbed than initially perceived. Eric becomes increasingly fixated on personal gain, as demonstrated by his schemes to steal money from the Tooth Fairy and exploit overweight kids trying to lose weight. Overall, he becomes much more calculated and manipulative. In one season 4 episode, we get a peek into Eric Cartman's mind when he's instructed to close his eyes and cover his ears to stimulate creativity. Instead of envisioning anything creative, he is met with bizarre and unsettling images, revealing a dark and twisted inner world. Cartman then dismisses the exercise, saying,
"Well, did you see anything?"
No, just the same old crap I always see when I close my eyes.
All of this would pale in comparison to the dramatic transformation we see from him in season 5. Eric Cartman's critical turning point, if you will. Scott Tenorman must die. One could argue that this is the single most important episode in the history of South Park. The episode begins with Eric Cartman being humiliated by a high school student named Scott Tenorman. Scott tricks Cartman into buying pubic hair, which Cartman naively believes it to be a sign of maturity.
You don't buy pubes, you grow them yourself. What?
When Cartman realizes he's been duped, he becomes infuriated. He then makes some childlike attempts to get revenge on Scott. only to be outsmarted at nearly every turn. Initially, Cartman would have been satisfied just from getting his money back, but after enduring repeated humiliation, something shifts within him. He becomes determined to ensure Scott suffers at any cost. This would result in one of the most shocking twists in animated TV history. The episode's ending involves Cartman serving chili, made from the ground-up remains of Scott Tenorman's parents.
I made you eat your parents.
Eric was no longer just a bigoted, self-obsessed kid. He was developing into a full-blown villain. He would go on to commit many different atrocities throughout the show. Among the worst, giving Kyle AIDS, deceiving his way into the Special Olympics, and even attempting to commit genocide.
Actually, Eric is still supposed to be grounded for trying to exterminate the Jews 2 weeks ago.
His most unforgivable act, however, was when he ate the skin off of every piece of KFC chicken before his friends could have any. Cold-blooded. Okay, all jokes aside, he is a constantly evolving character. One episode he might come across as an evil genius, while in the next we're shown that he's still just a child who is often clueless to the world around him.
What's to understand? You get a boner, slap her titties around some, and then stick it inside her and pee.
The flexibility of his character is something that is rare in media. I'd rather not devote an entire section to his psychological profile, as plenty of videos and posts over the years have already explored this. However, it is crucial to note that the situation is not as clear-cut as it might seem. While he does exhibit signs of psychopathy, mental health disorders, and other diagnostic traits, there are also times when he displays contrasting feelings as well. A perfect example of ASPD behavior is when he casually talks about a student offing himself.
Now you remember what happened to him?
Yeah, he killed himself.
Yet, a couple seasons before this, he shows a deep caring for stray cats and goes out of his way to shelter them. I guess my point here is that while examining his psychology can be fun, the conflicting information we have makes it difficult to diagnose him with any specific disorder. Let's move on. But first, if you're enjoying the video, consider subscribing. I always thought it was annoying when YouTubers asked this at the start of the video, so instead, I decided to be annoying in the middle of the video, considering most people don't watch the outro. Anyways, let's continue. So I've talked about his origin and the way his character has evolved over the years, but what is my argument for saying something as bold as he's one of the best characters in fiction? Well, let's get into it. Something that's really easy to do is write a character that everyone hates. Think Joffrey Baratheon from Game of Thrones. He's a spoiled brat, he takes pleasure in the pain of others, has a lack of empathy, yet still seeks affection and validation from those around him. If you analyze these characters side by side, their personality traits are shockingly similar. Yet one is the face of a franchise adored by millions of people, and the other is universally despised, even being ranked the most hated character across all media. What truly distinguishes Cartman from other characters like him is his ability to shift seamlessly between the roles of protagonist or antagonist. Watching an episode of South Park, you might find yourself rooting for him at one moment and against him in the next. Let's look at one of the top episodes of South Park, Awesemo, ranked 5th on IMDb's best episode list. In this episode, Cartman pretends to be a robot to win Butters' trust, aiming to trick him into revealing secrets that he can use to embarrass him. Just as Cartman is about to unmask himself, Butters reveals that he knows one of Eric's secrets. Butters has a videotape of Cartman performing a Britney Spears dance routine with a cardboard cutout of Justin Timberlake, in which he's making out with, might I add. From this moment on, viewers are treated to a satisfying storyline featuring Cartman's frantic efforts to retrieve the tape from Butters. We see Cartman suffer, and it brings us joy. Finally, after abusing Butters for so long, Eric is getting a taste of his own medicine. It's a therapeutic episode that ends with Cartman's humiliation. There's plenty of instances where Cartman ends up getting what he deserves, whether it's getting beaten up by Wendy, losing his $1 million in Cartman Land, or seeing his successful Christian rock band fall apart. The point is, we enjoy watching him suffer just as much as we enjoy watching him cause suffering to other people. Another thing that sets him apart is his ability to impact other characters. Whether positively or negatively, it's extremely entertaining. Let's look at some of his relationships, starting with the most important person in his life, his mother. Leanne Cartman is portrayed as a pushover, often giving in to Cartman's demands without much resistance.
But, Ma'am, I have to get some Pokemon doll before everybody else does, cause then I'll be cool.
Her leniency lets Cartman take advantage of her, which only makes him more selfish and manipulating. While this would obviously be terrible in the real world, it makes for some incredible television. One of my favorite episodes is the Dog Whisperer one with Caesar Milan. Leanne has finally had enough of Cartman's behavior and she finally takes a step to do something about it. And it works! This is one of the few times in the show where Cartman actually starts to change his ways. Only for it to end on a really sad note, showing that Leanne isn't just a mother, but someone who needs affection for herself and puts up with Eric's behavior just to get that.
You can have whatever you want.
That scene is really sad when you think about it, while somehow being hilarious at the same time. Something that only Eric Cartman could pull off. Let's move on to another character that's important in Cartman's life.
Ha! I beat you to it, kid! My name is not Kier.
In my opinion, Cartman brings out the absolute best in Kyle. And of course, I'm referring to that from an entertainment perspective. Kyle provides the voice of reason and is often the one to help resolve problems. You might like his character, but he isn't usually inherently funny on his own. However, when he clashes with Cartman, it leads to some of the best moments in the show's history. Dedicated South Park fans probably know that in Season 5, Trey Parker and Matt Stone actually had plans to kill off Kyle permanently, feeling he was just too similar to Stan and that having both characters was pointless. The main reason they decided against this was that Kyle was such a great vehicle for making Eric shine. Stan doesn't challenge Cartman nearly as often. He mostly cares about his image and he has a deep desire to be liked by other people, while Kyle will go out of his way to do the right thing, even if it sucks for him personally.
You're a fat skank mom and your tits belong in a morgue. Oh my god.
All I can say is thank God they didn't go through with killing off Kyle. It would have robbed us of some of Cartman's best moments. We talked a little bit about Butters and Osimo, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Casa Bonita, the death of Eric Cartman, Super Fun Time, Cartman Sucks, all legendary shows in the top of the episode rankings, and they're all centered around Cartman and Butters together. The difference with Butters is that he's an excellent character on his own. Unlike Leanne and Kyle, Butters doesn't really need Cartman to excel. But when two ridiculously good characters collide, you're bound to strike gold. I can't really do justice talking about Butters in this video, he deserves a video of his own, but these are the best written characters in South Park. I want you to try and imagine South Park without Eric Cartman. Where would the show be at today? The honest truth is that it probably would have ended by the mid-2000s. Eric Cartman quite literally is South Park. Remove any other character from the show and it would still be able to operate. Sure, a world without Butters or Randy is a world that I wouldn't want to live in. But what I'm trying to get across is that Eric Cartman is completely irreplaceable. He is so far above the other characters in the show that it's not really even debatable. Of course, Eric might not be your favorite character. You might relate more to another character or simply prefer someone else for your own personal reasons, and that's completely okay. However, when it comes to writing, he is the perfect character. His impact extends beyond the South Park universe as well. He has influenced society as a whole. The kind of humor he delivers is becoming increasingly rare in media, yet each new season of South Park serves as a reminder that it's still okay to laugh at things that might have darker or more offensive tones. For all of these reasons, I believe Eric Cartman is one of the most important fictional characters in modern media. What's your guys' favorite Cartman moment? I don't think I would be able to even answer that as there's too many for me. Speedrunning Casa Bonita, defecating on all the motorcycles, or thinking he was invisible in Good Times with Weapons. Anyways, if you guys made it this far in the video, liking it would really help me out. I aim to upload 1 to 2 South Park videos a week, and any type of support with a like, comment, or subscription would help me keep pace. Thank you all so much for watching.